Let's begin our exciting journey into the world of human relationships.
This story happened a month ago when our group of 3 families went on a nature trip, taking our children with us. We have been friends since college, and most of us were of the same age, except for 2 wives who were younger than their husbands. My name is Sandra, and I went on this trip with my husband Gene and our 8-year-old twins. One couple had a 7-year-old daughter, and the other had 2 sons, aged 7 and 8, respectively. In general, our vacation group was well chosen. I had been eyeing Tom, who I had liked since our college days. However, when we met, he was already in a relationship with his wife, and I had to come to terms with that. Later, I met my husband, and my desires gradually faded away. Amidst new emotions and later, in the routine of family life, such memories only resurfaced during similar trips. It was during these trips, accompanied by our children, that I could communicate more closely with him, albeit in public, so as not to arouse suspicion from my own husband. By that time, the feelings between my husband and me had cooled down after many years of domestic issues. He stopped taking care of himself, unlike the man I met 10 years ago, who still looked great and dressed stylishly. I admit that it's partly his wife's credit and partly the result of work demands. He holds a high position in the local company and earns well, which sets him apart from my husband, for whom such success is unattainable. Nevertheless, there is a great interest in this man. The camping site was quite large, so I never missed a chance to at least flirt or converse with him, although I tried to do it discreetly. This vacation trip completely changed everything. Upon arrival, we set up tents, as is customary on any vacation, started grilling meat, and enjoyed drinks. The children were playing on the side, covered with blankets so as not to disturb each other. In a state of alcohol intoxication, in the glow of the campfire, my college friend's husband seemed even more attractive than usual, especially since we had all had quite a few drinks and gradually began to doze off in place. My husband suggested that I go to sleep, but I said I would sit by the campfire for a little while longer. He agreed and helped our friends put all the children to bed before heading to our own tent. When the campfire area was empty, my desire grew stronger. I could see that Tom was thinking the same and wasn't in a hurry to leave. He only lingered for a moment to escort his wife to their tent, as she had overindulged in alcohol that evening, although it was not her usual habit. In the middle of the night, we were alone when everyone else succumbed to the effects of the long journey and alcohol. I suggested he sit next to me on the blanket, and he gladly agreed. He began complimenting me, confessing that he had dreamed of me his whole life and that I was much more beautiful than his wife. I was already enchanted and ready to believe anything, especially since he had always seemed attractive to me. I simply surrendered. It was quite a romantic scene in the forest, by the campfire. However, that was only until we had witnesses. Vincent, who was peacefully sleeping in his tent with his wife, came out to relieve himself. Approaching the campfire, he saw what we were doing, smirked, and went about his business. We didn't even say anything to him. He is a trustworthy person, so we were confident he wouldn't tell anyone. We decided not to waste any time and continued on our way. However, our enjoyment didn't last long because right after husband, Olivia emerged from her tent, whom he likely woke up, and stepped out for some fresh air. Olivia, an impulsive woman, didn't keep quiet. She had the sense not to shout and wake our children, and for that, we were grateful to her. In short, she burst into the tent and began muttering something to my husband about betrayal. He immediately jumped up, still groggy and annoyed at being awakened, clearly not understanding the seriousness of the situation. Meanwhile, Tom and I had already come to our senses. Olivia continued her tirade after she made sure my husband was now aware. She called for Inna and tried to pull her out of the tent, but her efforts were in vain. She was too drunk and couldn't respond coherently to attempts to wake her. Perhaps it was for the best, we could explain everything to her more clearly when she woke up with a clearer head. When my husband realized that Olivia was not lying, he immediately approached Tom and gave him a good punch in the face. He grabbed me by the hair and dragged me into the tent. None of us, the guilty parties, attempted to justify our actions. It was already clear that we couldn't go on living as we had before. In general, I quietly asked him not to shout at me, so the children wouldn't wake up. He didn't shout, just sat down beside me, buried his head in his hands, and began to speak. He listed to me various insults and regrets for so many lost years. I didn't care anymore. I only now realized that I had tempted him. But I should have done it much earlier when Tom and his future wife had just started dating. It would have been better to lose a friend than my own happiness. Now I've lost not only her but also my man, who clearly won't be with me after everything that has happened. So many mistakes were made during all this time. The next evening, the four of us decided to have a serious conversation without unnecessary witnesses. Olivia attempted to intervene with her unwanted advice, but we quickly dismissed her so she wouldn't interfere. Tom's wife didn't create a scene and didn't strike me. My friend is a strong woman, and I've always known that. The situation was utterly insane, and none of us knew what to do. We just stared at each other blankly, hurt and silent, not mentioning divorce. In the end, we decided to officially get divorced, and each of us would lead our own lives. After what happened, pretending to be a normal family was not an option for any of us. We chose to maintain appearances for the sake of the children, no matter what our personal relationships were like. We love our children very much. I know that neither my husband nor my friend will forgive me, but since I now have a chance to build the relationship I've always dreamed of, I decided not to let it slip away. After our return, my husband and I lived as neighbors, and I tried to maintain communication with Tom. I even invited him on a date, during which he honestly confessed that he could no longer lie to me and had to admit that he was cheating on his wife, not for the first time, always following the same pattern, which had worked with me as well. My heart was completely shattered. I lost everything dear to me in an instant. Only the children remained from the man who now hates me for my betrayal. Only after that could I realize how much pain I had caused him. He had truly been my support and anchor all these years, and I traded him for a cheap affair. That day, I came home and tearfully begged my husband to forgive me for what had happened between us. I told him I would do everything to salvage our relationship and that I had realized my mistake. He honestly said he still loved me but was unlikely to be able to forgive what I had done to him. What a terrible mistake I made, betraying such a close and dear person. All I can do now is hope that time will heal.
As we conclude our journey into the world of human relationships, please remember to subscribe, like, and share our content. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next story.